Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements, here in this special series of sharings titled Deadman Walking, Freedom Never Dies, and the subtitle 11 Life Lessons in Facing Death. Today is lesson. I want to use the word cautiously here. Lesson in the making. Lessons, a verb, an energy, a process. There's no lesson learned. It's a learning process. Today, grace under pressure, a phrase originated from my friend who, at this point in time, Aung San Suu Kyi, in Burma at an undisclosed location. I've just learned that she will be sentenced on September 15th for crimes that she did not commit by the evil dictatorship in Burma. Grace under pressure. She used that phrase to talk about courage. Courage renewed repeatedly under harsh, unremitting pressure. Now, mind you, I am not a political prisoner, an existential prisoner to a large extent, who firmly believes there is freedom. There is a freedom. There is freedom that only oneself can give oneself. There is a freedom that only you can give you. That to me is the core of it all. The quality of consciousness that ushers in and up and down and through as many molecules of one's heart, mind, being, blood, oxygen. This quality of freedom tempered with grace. The pressure, the enormous complexity and pressure of being alive in a body. To state the obvious, so many things go wrong being embodied. The slightest pain can turn into an infection of unremitting anguish. We're living always in this zone, this existential, biological, intersecting zone, and in it and through it is consciousness. And the quality of that consciousness, that invisibility that determines, defines, accentuates everything. How we enter that invisibility and make real on the promise of the attributes of what we attribute to our Dharma, our spirituality, our quest to achieve the heights of meaning as a human. To me, it's the quality of my freedom. A freedom that only I can give myself no matter what. And nothing will take that freedom from me. I refuse to participate in the denigrating conditions of dictatorship and tyranny. Right there, that edge. So grace under pressure. If I've learned anything, if I'm learning anything with this diagnosis of an acutely enlarged aortic aneurysm with a aortic valve connected to the heart, now dissecting, and the prognosis of surgeons and doctors of fatality and death on an island where they say, don't call 911, there's no one here who can save your life. I'm here out of choice. I bring this not to be a victim of life, but a choice-making process on the quality of my own being. take refuge. Take refuge in your own unique process. No two of us will live alike. No two of us will dance alike. No two of us will kiss alike or hold hands alike. No two, obviously, will make love in the same way. The same way with the uniqueness of dying. There isn't a prescription, clearly, and yet there's ideas of how we should be and shouldn't be. And to release into that uniqueness, that creativity, that freedom that only you can give yourself, Alan, no matter what surgeons and operations and pharmaceutical drugs and time and circumstances, they can't ultimately give you what you can give yourself. And that's what this is really revealing to me, is the heightened urgency, the radical beauty, passion, the vulnerability, the grace, and the epic anxiety. You know, let me say this. I have a number of friends who live with chronic suffering. And there's so many of you out there in the world, so many people that we don't even know that live with chronic suffering. And they wish they were dead. And they probably want to commit some kind of existential, spiritual, biological euthanasia. But then at the same time, there are other circumstances where it's not so evident, the suffering. In my case, you know, I feel like just to be perfectly transparent, yesterday, the team of nurses from the Maui Hospice of Hawaii came and spent the afternoon here with me, talking. One of the most epic, perhaps right in there with the most epic conversations with perfect strangers that are perfect angels about who you are, how you feel. We were joking, you know, they've never met in all of their years of hospice work someone so vital, so upright, so talkative, so dynamic, so happy, who has this incredible catastrophic diagnoses. It's like we've never met anyone so healthy with the most fearsome prognosis in the imminence of tragic death. A ticking bomb that could go off at any time with a cough or a sneeze or an excessive poo. Who knows what? It's like, how do you deal with this? Do you want this? Do you want that? They're being elegant. I joked, you know, if I were polyamorous and you were single, I'd want to marry all three of you. You know, that's what I'm saying. The quality of the presence, that's all we have. There's nothing that they could offer to take the anxiety. They asked me, is there anything that you want for the anxiety? And I said, no. There's nothing that can go that far down in. Even my mindfulness, when I am alone at night, resting, sleeping, engaging in the process of my own being, in-breath, out-breath, feeling the sensations in my chest, my abdomen, my head. Way down deep inside, there's a very, very deep existential anxiety. It's so amazing having to live with that. And I bring this up with point 2, the lessons that I'm learning, grace under pressure. There's something super crazy and beautiful about being told that you will die any given minute. Don't tell yourself that. But it's so inbuilt to every molecule, every aspect of mind and body, every sensation, every perception is tempered by it. But at the same time, live through existence, not be fearless, but to provide grace under the existential weight of mortality. Could anything prepare me for this? I've been thinking that, you know. Everything has prepared me for living, not dying. How many times I've been reflecting over the last couple of days of being in India, in Calcutta, Varanasi, other cities in the country, and deliberately, like you, many of us who've gone to India, to Asia, you know, we bathed, baked, and were terrified by the immediacy of the culture. So raw, right? Homeless people, deformed people, lines of people on these narrow walkways in the city of Benares, candlelit and lanterns, just waiting for their moment to expire and to die, with their quiet loved ones, family members, one by one, walking, sitting closer to the Ghat, where we all end in the fire of transformational, existential transition from form into formlessness, into next lifeness. And I've looked in those bodies. You have too. I can see those bodies burning right inside of my mind's eye right now. They tell us to bring death to the forefront of our interiors. It's always there, and I'm bringing it right in there. What's my lesson? As that phyllo dough of the epidermis just peels back with the inferno of fire, and there is the beauty transforming right before your eyes, and you can't help but saying, that person will be me. What does this mean, to be born into a flesh encased soul or consciousness where impermanence is the guiding principle? Circumstances so far beyond our control, we can barely, deliberately craft and navigate an existence on our terms, because it's fraught constantly with the lightning bolt of genocides, the horrors of rape. Who would want that world? And all of a sudden, we get these diagnoses reflected back to us that you're diseased, you've got a tumor, you're terminal, you've got cancer, you've got an aortic aneurysm that could burst at any moment like a worn out radiator hose. But not in a car, like in an airplane. You will crash. Get that surgery, get that surgery, get that surgery. It's another lesson that I'm learning is, it's one thing to be diagnosed with something that's quite culturally tragic. You've got a fatal illness and you're going to die. For me, it's not quite like that. But then there's the cacophony, bless their hearts, the cacophony and the poetry and the silence of otherness whom you've got to encounter and deal with. Family, friends, strangers. There's something in the process when life and death and disease and fatality and hospice and surgery and all the various things that come with, birth and death get put out onto the table, and everyone seems to have a feeling, an opinion, which of course is quite natural. But one of the mantras that I hear quite frequently is, get over your, not quite as blunt, but pretty close, get over your fear, get surgery. Get over your fear. Get over your fear. Get over your fear. What a asshole thing to tell someone. Get over your trauma. Get over your anxiety. Get over your stress. Get over your rape. Get over your loss. Get over your grief. Get over? Get over? What are you talking about? Is that like spiritual tyranny? No offense if you said that to someone, but go apologize. Come back into a type of, wow, it may very well be that it's better to inquire from the soul of the being than to dictate what the other should or shouldn't do. One of the great things that I'm learning in this process is the complexity again. I mean, if it only could be felt like this, the complexity of ordinary, basic human interaction among friends, families, strangers, and the broader public. And for me personally, just to, speaking out loud here in a spontaneous way, I personally don't feel that I have rejected surgery, although it is demonstratively, epically complicated. I have a new friend of mine in Vancouver whom I'm in regular contact with who have gone down the road of surgery. Unthinkable complexity. I won't get into the nitty-gritty details of 2 emergency room visits where his wife found him in a pool of blood. Perfectly healthy, my age, a meditator, does mindfulness, does yoga, even plays golf and tennis. Epic challenge. Without my wife, I would have never have made it. Take your time, Alan. Take your time, Alan. It's not about fear or racing toward surgery. There's an intuitive process right there. Trust. If anything could ever be actualized in our lives. Obviously, the brain and my cognitive skills are flawed. They're tempered by all kinds of struggles and traumas. By way of saying, we're human. We'll never figure out who we are ultimately in the context of this totality. We're trying. There are references in Indian Buddhist texts that talk about ideals, phantasmagorical spiritual possibilities, even the concept of enlightenment, the complete overcoming of greed, anger, and delusion. How extraordinary that would be to be having your eyes and your tongue cut out and you feel no aggression, no fear. Yes, there may be pain, but there's no reaction. That is beyond. I guess what I'm saying here is that in this process, we've got to come deeper and deeper into a humanness with this that's so intrinsically found in the word for me, trust. I call it radical. If there's ever a time to actualize your innate Rumi as you are, create the poetry of your own uniqueness. Why wait? Change the narrative. If there's ever a time to be hyper-spiritual, psychological, emotional, and increase the intensity of your intelligence to intercept negative patterns of self-diminishment and to elevate qualities of realization and ascension, this is the time to be everything you can be just as you are. Trust. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea when I will die. I anticipate a catastrophic form of pain. No. Right there. I do not want to numb that thought pattern with a pharmaceutical drug. I want to engage it, right back to Aung San Suu Kyi, with the most courage that I can bring, and bring grace, not fearlessness. She would often encourage the activists in her country, and I can hear her now being sentenced to life imprisonment in a couple of days, virtually in silence. Courage renewed repeatedly in the face of harsh, unremitting pressure. Fearlessness may be an ideal, but more important is courage, grace renewed repeatedly under harsh, unremitting pressure. Act despite the fear. Act despite the fear. I keep coming back to Nick Cave, pushing the existential, psychological sky away. Do not give yourself any time whatsoever, a little, to self-denigrating, self-loathsome, panic, anxiety-driven, stress-induced, fear-addicted. Study those formations and push them away. Push those people out. Push those circumstances out. Be willing to be a renunciate in your own isolation from these patterns of fear and prejudice and should do and shouldn't do. Okay. I just noticed the emphasis that I have in my tone is my personal need to keep embodying the edge of my own process. There is no way to come to terms with this. If I were to let myself ruminate and play in the field of pain and woe and grief and despair and loss and longing, it'd be a lot of tears. I noticed even yesterday in this room with these angelic women, my friend Summer, these 3 nurses. They're not nurses, these are truly angels. The epic nature of this dynamic. I can feel my humanness coming alive and feeling like what a gift it is to commune and to talk and to play and to discuss. You become the center of attention when you're dying. And these people are here to usher you into the transition on your terms. And you go, oh my God, if there's ever a time for sacred communion, as I mentioned yesterday in first lesson, bring God into your room. Bring your God into your room and induce with grace the edge of your own honor, your own uniqueness, your own mindful quality of trust. I'm thinking today that I'm going to hesitant to say it, but explore. I want to use the word radical options to go down in deep to my own mind and body and process. I would say that the most it's hard to go there because to have hope, one has to be confronted with it not working out. And believing in miracles. Yeah, that's it. I want to believe in a miracle. I want to believe that there's the possibility along this serendipity of choices and predictions and complexities and travel that I will stumble upon, intuitively excite the evidence of a miracle in the making. What would that be? A glib part of me says the absolute absence of an aneurysm. A diseased valve. There's something in that level of Dharma cure at the core of my being that I do believe in, having been a monk, having a strong root system in the esoteric dimensions of Dhamma and Buddhism. The psychic, intuitive, transformational, transcendent miraculous cures that come from, and I've seen it with others, and I've seen a little bit of it in my own life, through the deliberate empowerment of specific constituents of consciousness, the deliberate developmental empowerment of specific states of consciousness. That's another way of looking at meditation. I know you know that. The deliberate developmental empowerment of states of consciousness that result by pure function to relax contraction, and therefore physical, emotional, and existential contraction, i.e. healing at core level. I've seen nuns and monks and some laymen and some lay women in Burma who've undergone intensive, sustained mindful training practice with qualified teachers, where a brain tumor, through the power of mindfulness and sustained concentration over many weeks and some months, it dissolves something at a core level where the tumor goes away. And it's explained by the Kalyanamitas as a very discernible process of how consciousness influences rupa or form. Just like consciousness opens my fist, imagine at the core level of a Red Sea parting, a tumor disappearing, enlightenment, the miracle of an enlightened state of mind, the absolute absence, perpetuity of fear. Talk about a miracle. That consciousness can be unentangled from that core knot of conditioning. Wow. So if that's the case, the Dhamma cure, the Dharma cure, the miracle, this is where I'm going to soon in my own lifestyle. All the medical discussions and all the various things that I'm doing are all my way of preparing for the inevitable to get to that point where I can really sanctify. This is, for me personally, a Dhamma space. Yes, you can walk in God and holiness wherever you walk and talk and move, but there are sacred spaces, and I know you know that. To create a sacred space where you interrupt the conformity and the obedience to habit patterns. This is where I feel so blessed in having done so many different quantities and substances in a psychotherapeutic existential environment to explore consciousness with substances and with meditation. Meditation is purely a pointing to consciousness, deliberately entering consciousness to evolve and empower states of consciousness to illuminate new states of consciousness. I look out almost every night at the heavens to remind me that we are not alone, but the infinity of existence outside, and I've seen to a large extent inside. The miracle thing, the point I'm making here in this second point, intersecting with bring God into the room and grace under pressure, embodying the beauty that you are on the terms of your own innateness, but right in there employing the constituents of the most profound possibilities known on the planet. Yeah, that's it. Moving up my meditative presence from an hour to 3, 4, 5 hours a day. To deliberately increase and decrease certain behaviors and substances. To increase luminosity, potentiality, momentum, luminosity, sensitivity, equanimity, insight, wisdom. The power of wisdom to cure ailments. Now, On a practical level, I know from my life in Burma meditating that I had chronic migraines. I had chronic back pains from my car accident. I had chronic anxiety and futuristic momentum habit patterns that I broke the code of thinking that I needed this in order to feel better. I actualized, to a large extent, the purity of simplicity and the freedom of relinquishment rather than grasping, calling off the future, cracking the momentum of a better tomorrow than right now, and living in the radiance of the purity of an opening of the heart more so than the acquiring of pleasures in the avoidance of pain. But to overcome the headache, the back pain, and the various other ailments that I've seen through consciousness, this is my way of coming closer and closer to wanting to go deeper and deeper into the sanctuary of my soul and get down deeper into a microscopic level of where consciousness intersects with the continuum, and to disavow thoughts and emotions and patterns of psychological conformity to my own conflict. And release, 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 and release, and release more. Right back to the lessons learned as I come to the end here. For me personally, of political prisoners, there is a freedom that only you can give yourself. And it's only you who can evaluate the quality of that freedom. And do you want to give yourself that freedom? And can that freedom coexist with pain and suffering without self-abuse, without fear, without self-denigration, without the perception that something is happening that is wrong? I know this is so simple to say and so complex to embody. Although the body is diseased and perpetually in decay towards death, do not let the mind be affected by those conditions. Further, evolve the quality of your engagement based on investing in consciousness, not the absence of physical pain as what determines your happiness. How nice it would be if it weren't there. How nice it would be if it weren't there. How nice it would be if it weren't there. Propaganda. When you're meditating and you're sitting and you're occupying truly the mindful presence of phenomena in flow, occupying presence far exceeds the need for this or that to be present or gone. I know many of you as meditators know that. But how easy it is to forget that and to neglect the power of purpose. Coming to the end here. Grace over fearlessness. The rumification of your own uniqueness in an unpostponed way. Why wait for calamity, for suffering, for despair, for hardship, for illness, for disease, loss, and death, all those events that are inevitable? Why wait to anoint, to occupy, and elevate you as you are on your terms throughout the day and bring your God into the room of your own heart, your own mind, your own body. And when you do encounter complexity, do so with courage and grace in your own unique way of coming to terms with discontinuity, suffering, the grief of looking at a world in decay and collapse. Trust in the existential radical rebellion of beautifying this great ecosystem of totality with the finest qualities of consciousness that you could imagine developing and sustaining in that development. Bring your Dharma to the forefront of your being. Develop, abide, occupy, expand, co-create, and release. It's hard to shake the fact that my brothers and sisters in Burma, a country where an evil dictator is enacting genocide upon the people, persecution. It is unthinkable to me at a core level of how the world sits and stands in apathy. There are those who are roused in courage and honor and cry and weep and donate and give to the people, the dissidents, the activists, the radical freedom fighters in Myanmar today. I think so much of what I'm saying and feeling in my life has come from my associations with these heroic women and men. Many of them are unknown to the world. Many of them are dead. That long lineage of radical, freedom-loving, spiritually infused, political, spiritual, existential, radical activists that those people are, the most rad. I've learned these gifts from them. I bring this up no matter how you are feeling. Knowingly or unknowingly, we are impacting others. I feel that I am the result of my relationships. Where I've been inspired, I am borrowing from those memories right now, bringing those memories, those hard-earned associations emotionally and psychologically to the forefront of my own being. I am not a political prisoner. I'm not being tortured. I am blessed to be on this island with beautiful people, with angels, hospice goddesses, with food, with shelter, with the gifts of friendship, with substance that illuminate consciousness, with a yoga mat, with food, organic at that, with fruit juices, with an ocean I love walking along. And yet, these horrors exist and coexist. The COVID deaths, the anguish from the pandemic, the collapse of Afghanistan, the rape of the women, the immigrants coming across our border, the suffering of my friends in the prison camps in Burma. You're doing what you're doing, Alan, to do the best that you can to keep alive the facets and the qualities of consciousness known as your soul refuge. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. We are living embodiments of that. Take refuge in that and know that you are gifting your friends and your family, known or unknown, with the way in which you create grace under pressure, the way in which you bring God into the room. The political prisoners in Burma, the ones that have died there, the ones that are there right now, Aung San Suu Kyi, so many of the others, I bow to you in grace and support and honor and inspiration. You help me to understand how to deal with my own complexities, my own circumstances, coming right back to the core of today of grace under pressure is one thing. But remember, it's the quality of consciousness. There is a freedom that only you can give yourself. There's a freedom that only you can give yourself. How well do you want to occupy that feeling of freedom and confront fear, confront complexity, confront all the propaganda and the misinformation from politics, from educators, from all the various ways in which we've inherited the mind distortions that give rise to these fear. Quality over longevity. Engagement over comfort alone. By way of saying, I want to thank you, political prisoners, for grace under pressure, grace renewed repeatedly under harsh, unremitting pressure. We're all under it. I don't feel unique in my own circumstance. And I want to in my own humble way, keep alive the timeless journey of confronting complexity, confronting suffering, confronting disease, confronting mortality. And I guess what I'm trying to say in my own awkward way today is you'll be forgotten, I'll be forgotten. We'll disappear soon as our bodies burn or decay. The radiance of what stays alive is how well we lived. The quality of consciousness. How well do you inhabit your interior mind? These political prisoners, they have nothing left. How well do they occupy their dignity, their conscience, their hope and dynamic action? How many of them that I've interviewed, I kept hope alive in my way of breathing in dignity. Nobody could take my conscience and dignity or my freedom from me. There's something so cool about that. There is no aneurysm that can rupture that will take my freedom of mind away from me. And that gives me hope that my little life and my formations of presence keep alive this incredible luxury that we have of the study of Dhamma. The greatest gift that we can give ourselves is to study how to navigate consciousness, to push away the fear, to push away the greed, to push away the delusion, and to keep alive the luminosity of freedom. How well do you live in freedom throughout the day is a question I ask myself. Not how well will I die. How well will I use my voice? How well will I talk and communicate? How well will I use what I have that's mine rightly? And to keep the radiance of this freedom, the dream of higher order freedom active for the future of life. So from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in today. Lesson in development number 2, grace under pressure. Lesson yesterday, bringing God into our room, bringing your God into your heart, and bringing the very best of ourselves to the forefront of our lives, and making today, cliched as it may sound, the very, very best day of our lives. Don't give up the little things. Keep manifesting in the best way we can, the way we eat, the way we drink, the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we text. Just as we did it as monks and nuns in a monastery. I love the emphasis on detail. The way in which you do things is everything. You are responsible for your state of mind. Your freedom is not someone else's to take. It's yours. So from my heart to yours, remember, there is a freedom that only you can give yourself. It's my mantra today. So from my heart to yours, have a beautiful day, God willing. See you tomorrow for the third part of the series, Deadman Walking, Freedom Never Dies, 11 Life Lessons in Facing Death. Okay, thank you.